Darwin had an amazing life. He sailed the world. He saw volcanoes explode. He felt earthquakes rock. He even rode on the back of a tortoise, like a horse, when he was traveling.
Here's a tortoise.
Here's one of the tortoises that he rode.
What?
Yep. And it's as big as a large, large dog.
Like a turtle.
Well, Mr. Darwin grew up. His father was a doctor. Where did Mr. Darwin grow up? Anybody know what country? England. Where the Queen comes from. Yes. James, where your grandmother lives. Well, that's where Mr. Darwin lived. Mr. Darwin was the 5th child in his family. He had 4 older siblings. One of them was Erasmus. Erasmus was his best friend. Yes. I know, you can ask her that. And you can even ask her, do you ever visit her in England? Do you ever? Turks and Caicos Islands, you'll probably see wild animals there. Well, when you go back to England, you can ask her to show you on one of their 5-pound notes a picture of Mr. Darwin. Well, well, let me tell you more about Mr. Darwin. He grew up with his brother Erasmus, and they went into their garden shed and set up a laboratory there. He collected creepy crawlies, lots of insects. Is there anybody here who came dressed as they're insects? Did anybody come dressed as an insect today? The ladybug is an insect. Is a butterfly an insect? I think so. You're a bird. Really? I'm going to speed this story up. So, let me tell you what happened next. Mr. Darwin, when he was growing up, he wanted to be a doctor. But he went into medical school, and he went into the operating room, and he saw something that made him feel so sick that he couldn't do it anymore. You know what that was? He didn't like it at all. So you think he'd make a good doctor? If you're going to be a doctor who operates on people, you can't get sick if you're going to be a doctor. You look at blood. So he wasn't going to be a doctor. So his daddy said, why don't you be a priest? So he went away to be a priest in a church, but he spent all his time collecting things, beetles, when he was studying. So he didn't end up being a priest. Yeah. We have blood in our body. And Mr. Darwin thought it was better that that blood stayed inside the body. So that's why he didn't want to be a doctor. So later then, he met somebody called Robert Fitzroy. Robert Fitzroy was the captain of the ship called the Beagle. You're right. What's a beagle? Anybody know?
Like an eagle.
What is a beagle? It's a type of dog. But it was also the name of Mr. Darwin's boat. And he went around the world. He went from England, around South America, all the way across the Pacific, to the islands of the Pacific and Micronesia, to New Zealand. There's his boat. He went to Australia. He went to Indonesia, and over to Ceylon, South Africa, and then back to South America. You know how long it took him to make that trip? There's a castle there too. He visited a castle. You know how long it took him to make that trip? How many think it was 1 year? How many think it was 3 years? How many think it was 3 years? How many think it was 100 years?
No.
100 years? Show the picture of Mr. Darwin being old. Can you find that one? You tell me whether you think Mr. Darwin looks like he's 100 years old. You actually the cover, yeah, the cover.
On the cover.
Yeah.
Okay, this is.
Yeah, show the front cover. Show the front cover. Yeah. You think he looks like he's 100 years old?
Yeah.
No, it took him 5 years to go all the way around the world. I'll tell you some of the things he saw on his trip. First of all, he was so seasick that he spent most of his time just lying in his hammock. He studied a man who found out that rocks were much, much older than they were. So if you want to know why Mr. Darwin figured out a new way to understand animals, you first have to figure out why it was so important for rocks to be very, very, very old. Maybe we'll talk about that later. You want me to give you one explanation? You want to try?
How do rocks grow?
How do rocks grow? Do rocks grow, Scotty?
They get older,
They get older.
but they're not alive, so they don't really grow.
That's true. Now, they don't really grow. They change. Metamorphic rocks change. When the rocks get pushed deep into the soil and the pressure pushes them, they can turn into different things like
Mommy, what do you think this is? And diamonds are inside the rock.
and diamonds in the inside of the rock. That's true.
They can change.
This is why rocks are so important. Because most people thought that all the animals were created by God just as they are now, never changing. So that God said, I'll have a tiger, I'll have an eagle, I'll have a wolf. But Mr. Darwin said, you know what? I think animals change. They start out as one thing, and then their babies change, and then their babies change, and then their babies change, and then you get many variant animals. Let me finish this because it's so complicated. And so what he figured out was that would take so long for the animals to change to have an eagle and a butterfly, both in the same world, that they didn't know how it could happen. When he found out that it took rocks a long, 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 time to change, that made him realize that animals grew into what they were just by being born again. Your parents can explain the rest of survival and fish to you later, right? So let me finish the story. Let me finish the story, then we have 2 more songs. You're all being very good, but I know I'm pressing my luck. So, in South America, I'll tell you some of the things Mr. Darwin saw. He saw a 10-foot tall sloth bear. Was it alive? No. He found the bones of that bear. He also found armadillos that were as big as cows. Were they alive? No. They found the bones of them. So he figured out that they were animals that lived a long time ago and died. Then he found on the Galapagos Island birds that had different sized beaks. And when you go back and pin the beak on the bird, or what do you pin on the bird?
It's a beak.
It's a beak. You'll see that each beak was made for getting food in different ways. So here's all the different sizes of beaks. Thank you. Boy, my assistants are good. Some beaks were good for breaking nuts. Other beaks were good for digging into the dirt to get insects. Some beaks were good for picking seeds out of plants or off the ground. And each bird would live longer if they could get the food better. So on islands where the nuts were available, which of these birds do you think was the big eater? The ones that had to have a strong beak to break the nuts. Which one do you think? That's right! The big beak like a hammer that could smash the nuts open. So that bird lived more, his family grew bigger and bigger on that island. So that's how different birds developed in different islands.
I think I see Mr. Darwin.
Where?
Right there.
In the silly hat? Yes, that's a bowler hat. That was Mr. Darwin. So to finish the story, I'll just say the last couple of things about him. He found out that plants and animals compete for food, and that's what makes different animals all over the place. He also saw that you guys have parts of the parents that gave birth to you in you, different types of you, so tall and short. And he told one of his friends about this, who was working on the same theory. And so in 1859, he published a book called On the Origins of Species, which is one of the most famous books ever printed. When you get older, I urge you to read about that, find out how other animals came into being.
It's not that big.
Yeah, it's a big book for kids, but it's a little book for grown-ups. Yes?
I never had it.
You never had that book? Well, maybe when you get older, you can get a copy, and you can also read some about it in the library. You can get kids' books that explain it. So on the back of the quizzes over there, if your age has been 5 to 7 or 8 through 10, you can do the quiz. I will tell the answers as I'm going to mark the answers and put them on the door as you go out, so you can see whether you've gotten it right or not. And on the back of the on the back of the certificates you'll get as you leave are some websites that your parents can go to find out more about Charles Darwin.
And then
So
the coloring book also tells the story of Charles Darwin. So
Thank
there's
you.
that.
And you can take the coloring books home. So, are you almost ready for some food? Close.
I'm ready for
Why don't, if we sing 2 more songs, Can we have food then?
No! No! I can't.
I'm going to take the 2 yeses over the 1 no.
No!
You never showed the cats.
Oh, you can show the different cats. The last 2 songs we're going to do is Octopus's Garden and Puff the Magic Dragon. Adults, I'd love you to join in. Could I have some helpers to hand these out to everybody? 1 sheet per person, and then get back. Thank you.